And at the same time, now you're going to have that defensive capabilities paired with the TB. So now we're going to have Abaddon Leshrac versus Oracle TB. And we've already gone over how this TB wins the matchup if he's given enough time. I'm just really, really worried now because now looking into the hero pool, you need Sexy Fat on something that can't just be your initiator. He can't just be sort of your run and gun. I'm going to go in, I'm going to stun, I'm going to do what I can, maybe pop a BKB, eat a spell or two, and then get out. You need to have someone to help commit with this Rubik. If they pick the Mars here, that would be an option that it'll feel good in the moment, and they might even go for it. Okay, this is better. This is a lot better. They need more damage. They need to sort of double down here. Otherwise, again, this TB, it just runs away with games.
Yeah, I do, as you sort of said, like the Sand King much more than something like the Mars. I feel like it gives them a little bit more in the way of that offensive firepower that you were sort of mentioning they were missing. The Sand King is going to be able to do a little bit more. Maybe that comes at the expense of the same degree of lockdown as the Mars, but you can get in there with the Burrow, the Epicenter. If you can actually get it off, is going to be pretty big. And even something as minor as the Sandstorm in the middle of a fight, if your TB is not in ranged form, if the meta's not up, then who knows? A little bit of extra damage, a little bit disruptive. So the Sand King just feels like it maybe brings you a little bit more, but maybe you're lacking in lockdown at that point. Maybe you're also lacking in durability. The Sand King doesn't always turn into the tankiest boy in the world, but that's the risk Fúria Jovem have been sort of pushed into having to take with this lineup. Meanwhile, for Infamous, they're going to get their hands on the Kunkka. This is going to make life difficult for that Fúria side. Kunkka's not an easy hero to just sort of break through. Relatively durable, lots of control to work with as well.
And again, while you do have sort of the unfortunate circumstance where now you are a ranged hero versus a melee hero in the mid lane, but Kunkka is historically one of the best heroes versus the Abaddon. You have the ability that is unpurgeable. There's not much you can do about it. At the same time, a very good hero versus the Sand King. Again, you just bring everybody back to you. And again, we've seen this hero several times in this tournament already where they pick up the Kunkka when you see that the enemy team is already struggling to find sources of damage. Now, you pick up the Kunkka, we throw that into the mix with the Oracle TB. These team fights are going to get very, very difficult for Fúria, and that's where they can't play the defensive game. They can't play the same style that they did in the first game. They need to be more, we're going to jump you, we're going to be aggressive, we need to burst the backline, then we need to get out. They need to almost mirror what Infamous was able to do with the Tiny in the previous game, except with a lot less farm priority on that hero. Because the Sand King, at the end of the day, he is not a Tiny. He does not have the freest time. You're not tanky like a Tiny. You don't have the burst like a Tiny. You're going to need to rely on that Leshrac, and it's just going to be up to the supporting cast to really enable and push Suits forward. Because if he has another quiet Leshrac game, the Infamous lineup, again, this core, this TB, he just doesn't care about you. He's not going to care about you. He's going to right-click you till you die, and then he's going to take your buildings. And that's my biggest problem right now for Fúria. Their execution level, it just needs to reach the floor. It needs to meet Infamous, because otherwise, again, they've got the sort of default win lineup. If they get too much time, I think this lineup does just sort of win, as well as they just get to last pick their offlaner's hero here. It just feels like they've got everything they already want in a draft.
Yeah, and now for Fúria, that Sand King pick makes the Rubik one look a little bit more awkward. As you're mentioning, your Sand King, he's going to need help, right? He's not exactly a one-man show. Your aggressive position 4 support that's supposed to sort of help out, make that 1-2 punch happen, is a Rubik that doesn't really have a whole lot of crazy offensive capabilities. So you've put yourself into, honestly, a bit of an awkward spot here. It could still work out for them, but it just feels like they've made life a little bit more difficult, and Infamous have just really sort of taken them to task here with this draft so far. They close things out, though, with the LC pickup. Okay.
And it's a hero, it's not popular here, but in other regions, it's a very, very strong hero. It's one of those shards you don't really consider up until, well, now there's more healing on Infamous side. They've got so much damage mitigation, so much healing. They're just all in on this strategy, this style. It's, again, Fúria, they got to catch him off guard. They got to catch him with a vision advantage. They got to catch him on their side of the map. And I do like this Drow Ranger. It does feel a little bit more secured, and it's a hero that is not going to be punished at all by this Legion Commander. Top lane should be a very safe time for for this Drow. She really shouldn't get pressured too much. If she does get pushed back to her tower, that's sort of the ideal. And Drow is one of the few heroes that we see do try to punch up towards that Terrorblade. But again, now Infamous, if they ever catch the Drow, if they ever find her out of position, that is going to be your another target. Infamous just have so many targets they would be happy hitting. Whereas Furia, they've got to be very specific. They've got to get the pecking order right. If they pull sort of an Infamous in game one where they all in on one or two heroes, I think they're going to run out of damage very, very quickly. And that's where I'm sort of concerned with how Furia's team fights are going to go. So really, they just need to get exactly what they want, and they need to start to run because, wait, Leo's
Also,
playing
yeah, hold
Rubik?
up. Yeah, I think we just saw that at the same time. Might be a positional switch up in this instance. RDO does have experience in a core role, so I
Yeah.
hope that that's the case. Otherwise, I don't know what in the world a position 1 Rubik is supposed to be, even. So,
It's got to be core draw. Maybe it is just a style thing because Leo and Rodeo, I think they both have experience in each other's roles. So
mhm.
Rubik's also not rocket science. It's really not that complicated hero. I know it's funny to say that because you think Rubik, oh, you're stealing spells, you're whipping out. You got a stun, you got a nuke, you got a steal spell. It's really something that you never really forget. Same with Drow Ranger. It's something that I'm sure these very, very good players will be comfortable swapping in between. But this Drow, again, if she's able to get a lead, the problem with Drow is you're always going to fall behind net worth-wise behind the TB. The TB just has way more options. It has way more solutions to farm. You have the illusions pushing in those side lanes. Ooh.
uh, okay.
Remake? Okay.
And everybody's gone.
I think the server maybe was not set correctly.
Yep. Looks like we're gonna be having ourselves a good old-fashioned remake. So, false alarm. Although, hold on. What? Now we got people coming back in. Or maybe not.
Uh,
Okay. They were just looking to, I guess, make sure that the remake was happening.
Definitely making me sweat just a little bit, I'll be honest.
Let me see if I can get some confirmation here.
Because I believe the way that it went was the Infamous chose first pick, so they chose server on the Furia side, and believe they chose Brazil. Yep, lobby is up for the next game.
Okay. Yeah. So we are apparently going to be having ourselves a little bit of a remake there. So apologies for that, folks. We're going to hop you back on over to that intermission screen for a little bit because it appears we are setting up once again. So false alarm, game 1, or excuse me, game 3, not quite happening just yet. So we're going to get that lobby remade, get everybody back in, and we will get game 3 started hopefully in just a little bit. So stick around. Game 3 2.0 will be coming your way in just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Let's give this another try, shall we? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LootBet Pro Series 7 America's closed qualifier. We were forced to restart the lobby there for Game 3. So a quick all-pick remake coming into play. Everybody selected the same heroes they drafted. So yeah, we are getting back into this one after just a little bit of a delay there, and we should now be good to go. I believe, if I was reading correctly, a couple of the Fúria Jovem players were in the bathroom and didn't actually get to select their proper heroes, which does play into a little bit of what ET and I were talking about in the draft. We mentioned Leo and RDO had sort of swapped heroes. That was not supposed to be intentional, and you can see here, RDO is now on the Rubik, Leo is playing the Drow Ranger. So, some issues there, a couple players in the bathroom. Because of that, the remake being sort of forced in, Fúria Jovem don't have any pause time for this third and final match. So, something to consider for them, but shouldn't really play too much into it. But we're back. We're ready to go. ET, welcome back. Bit of a false start there initially, but Game 3 is underway.
Yeah, precisely, and it's funny because now we have to collect our thoughts and just kind of move forward now, but at the end of the day, there's a Drow Ranger, there's a Terrorblade. Will the Drow be able to kite the Terrorblade? There are questions that I think Furious still need to answer in their lineup. I think, really, if Alone can have even a fraction of the game that we saw sort of yesterday when Dark Mago ended up on his Kunkka, it's going to feel incredibly good for the Infamous lineup. It's just such a fantastic Kunkka game. Every single hero on Fúria Jovem doesn't have that really easy save. Even the Abaddon is a target for Alone to sort of prey upon, and if this lane doesn't go too poorly for him, the Lesh is
Leo, oh god,
pretty
Leo.
adept at punishing.
He got clipped
yeah.
by the arrow all the way down in the bottom lane. Thought he was gonna be okay, but he couldn't actually outrun those opposing heroes. Duster has to TP in to sort of bail him out, and now the Drow actually used her TP to get back into the lane itself. So a nice bit of early damage coming out from Sacred and Michael, and they hit another stun there onto Duster. Unfortunately, Sacred at that point too far away to really follow that one up, but right from the horn, you see Infamous trying to sort of get aggressive in this lane, put as much pressure onto that Drow as they can, which not really sure how much that's going to work out for them long term. Drow, as that ranged hero, can sort of afford to sit back and maybe avoid a lot of that harassment, but try to sort of get your hits in now while you have the opportunity.
Yeah, and really, Leo is burning through a lot of his mana here. I'm a little bit surprised by how much or how carefree he's been about his mana usage, but there will get to a point where he will be able to sort of guarantee that the wave is going to push into him. Michael's going to keep on arrowing creeps. You're always going to have that spam coming in with the overwhelming odds, but now it was actually Duster that blocked his own small camp, but this is kind of a terrible situation for his Drow Ranger. Now the wave is so far up, it's sort of untenable. He's not able to really do anything, and this, again, it gives free time to Michael where he's going to start to stack, and Terrorblade is one of those heroes where maybe you don't want to stack super hard on the Ancients. He doesn't have that cleave, he doesn't have that sort of catalyst, and actually I'm curious what Duster is up to. I think, is he scouting out now? Yeah, he's trying to see. Interesting.
I mean, he doesn't have a ward or anything, so he can't actually block anything off, but just going up there to make sure. But while he steps out of lane, Leo is alone, and Michael and Sacred want in. They're going to hit him up with the damage. One more hit should do it, and the knowledge that your opponent is stacking a camp is pretty much not going to be worth actually losing your carry and giving up first blood. That just seemed kind of unnecessary from Duster in that situation.
Just super clean play, I suppose you could say, from Infamous, where they knew the rotations. They killed, even killed Leo's courier at the beginning of that. Just this ward slightly spawning out what was going on, and now mid. Alone, you missed the torrent.
Still hacking away though at the Leshrac, to be fair to him, but not really going to have much setup for a kill. However, I mean, Michael on this Mirana is really just going to keep on looking for these plays, especially if he gets to sort of play in between the lanes, stacking up these camps, right? So he's got the opportunity to really rotate into whatever lane needs him. And right now, it looks like the lane that needs him is bot. Sacred's getting a little bit pressured as Duster and Leo are trying to hit him up. So Michael feels the need to return here, and Duster might want to be a little bit careful. He's going to get hit by the shield, so he can't, hit by the arrow, so he couldn't shield himself. And he may just die. One more hit could do him in, and there it is. Michael actually didn't need the leap as Sacred hit him.
Wave.
Oh god, Leo.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's just going to go down. Can he actually get Michael? No, he can't. Nothing coming out of that. Double kill for Sacred. RDO, though. Well, God bless him. He's going to try and get something for his team, even if it's just the one kill onto the Mirana, but he makes it happen. Fade Bolt comes in, and they're on the board, but that was so costly. Sacred, to be honest, I didn't think he had that opportunity, but he sees the opening, pushes in with the move speed bonus from the overwhelming odds, and Leo just sort of trying to hold his ground, very quickly realizing, though, he was not going to be able to actually survive that.
And now you'll see, and this is the problem, Infamous, they do this so well when they can. They're just immediately on to Sexy Fat now, and
they're even going in onto the Leshrac mid as well. They're just putting pressure everywhere. Actually, is Sexy Fat going to be fine? He's
one more hit. One more hit and a nuke?
There it is. A takes him down, Lumiere picks up the assist, and Infamous really starting to get it going, applying pressure on all fronts. They're farming well, they're finding kills, and all the while, I mean, Michael's been still stacking. Not every single time, obviously, as he's been making those rotations. 3 assists on the board for him, but often enough where that's going to be a nice prize for the TB and or Kunkka. And you're already starting to fall behind. Those stacks are going to make life even more difficult. As bottom lane, Leo has to dodge the arrow. Will be able to do so at least, so Sacred won't be going in onto him this time. But up in the top lane, bit of a different story. Sexy Fat going to get hit up by that Fortune's End, but they don't actually have any detection here. There's a sentry in A's inventory. He doesn't want to throw it down right now, especially considering there's already a sentry further back from the Fúria Jovem side to potentially take it out. So Lumiere's going to sit back, play it a little bit safer. Sexy Fat really is not in a position to go diving the tower right now, so as long as he stays under that tier 1, he should be okay, and he'll continue to farm.
Yeah, and really, it's just because they had to TP the Rubik bottom just to get anything out of that exchange. Rodeo spent the past minute, I think he battled for the 4-minute runes, but it's been such a long path for the Rubik to get back to where he's been wanting to play. And again, Infamous are just so fast, they just strike when the fire's hot. And it's just felt everywhere, because Sacred, he's got phase boots now, he's got 10 armor. This Drow does not feel like she's going to do anything. It just kind of tickles now to Sacred, and you see he's just playing super up while the creep wave is actually just pushing into his tower, because he could care less. He's just going to put as much damage onto the Drow as possible. And again, she does not have that catalyst. She doesn't buy a Battle Fury, she doesn't buy a Manta style. Well, okay, she might buy a Manta style, but you don't have those tools available to you where you are going to just immediately start farming faster, or even on equal footing to the Terrorblade. And it's a sort of guaranteed advantage that Infamous are definitely going to play around.
And you can already see that Drow sitting in 4th. That's not too bad, but you compare any of the numbers on the Fúria Jovem side to what we've got on the TB and Alone's Kunkka, it's a pretty significant discrepancy, and now there is a fight breaking out. They're going to jump in onto Duster first. They take him down right away, and now the Drow has no backup and no way to get out. Sacred very wisely even taking a few steps back there just to get out of that attack range, so they will be able to keep him safe. And now over in the top lane, A and Lumiere, they see opportunities for even more. They're going to try and jump in onto the Rubik. RDO is getting away for now, but the Fortune's End will be rooting him up, and Lumiere should be getting in for the final bit of damage. So, well, the kills are coming fast and furious here on that Infamous side. They just keep on racking them up, and as of right now, Fúria Jovem don't really seem to have much of a response. They were at least able to get that tier 1 tower mid, but now,
Arrow.
Yep, their Leshrac is going to get hit up. Duster was a little bit too early with the shield, so the stun connects.
No,
Zeus,
Duster.
oh, come on. Zeus goes down, and Duster does not clear out in time. He gets clipped by the ghost ship, and I mean, you want the game in a nutshell. There it is, right? It starts off bad, and a minor mistake makes it somehow even worse. As Infamous really just feeling themselves 9-1. I mean, we're still only 7 minutes in, but they're just doing everything they want right now. All their cores sitting at the top of that net worth chart, and this Drow is still not having fun.
And that's where I just feel like Infamous are adapted so much better in the entire series, playing versus Fúria. While you were able to claim that mid tier 1 tower with the Leshrac, you had known that the glyph was already committed elsewhere. I think they're just getting a little bit too ahead of themselves here. You're already seeing now Leo is forced to vacate. At least he has treads, but it's going to be a long road to get his level 6. He has to at least farm, I think, 2 or 3 just neutral camps. And it feels like now he's sort of a drow without a home. He can't farm the ancients just yet. He can't farm really anywhere that he wants. He can't put pressure on the mid tower because his Leshrac already completed that goal. It just feels like it's much easier for Infamous to play. And
They're making a
mid,
play onto Alone, but okay.
nope.
Not much of a play, all things considered. Alone simply able to outpace him. Walks away from that fight, and now... I mean, where
Maybe
is Leo
Lumiere?
going? He's just rotating around. If they can get Lumiere, that'd be pretty big. He doesn't have the ult, so... Okay. Did Leo get in there for an assist? I'm not entirely sure. He did throw out a right click at the very end, but the kill will go to the way of the Leshrac. That is a kill that they desperately needed, and now they're just going to roam all the way. They're going up top. They're looking for this Oracle, and maybe not the most valuable of kills, but they could turn it into a push onto the tower after they clear this one out. So they are going in. No ult up on A, so he can't really save himself. Sacred, though, I don't know if you want to be here right now.
They're gonna fight here, it looks like.
All right.
Yeah, they're
TP's
TPing in.
TPing back in. They get the X into the Ghost Ship, trying to jump onto that Lesh. They lock him down. Can they get the duel down? Yes, they can. So, Lesh stuck in the fight. Zeus will be taken down. Duster falling as well, and now the rest of Fúria Jovem just have to run. Leo's going to go for the TP, and will make it out. No more lockdown from Infamous. That's a bit of a lucky break for him. Unfortunately, it does leave RDO in a bit of an awkward spot here, as he is going to get chased down. Michael leaps his way out of the stun from that telekinesis, and at this point, RDO is going to be taken down. He'll be glimpsed, or not glimpsed, rather, X'd back into the fight. Sexy Fat, meanwhile, Burrow struck in, looking to help out his teammate instead. He's kind of stuck in this fight as well, hit by the Torrent, but this would be a dive on a tier 1 if they go in for it. Will they really commit? It looks like they kind of want to. They got the dust down, so they see Sexy Fat. He's going to try to buy some time with the Burrow. Does lock down Lumiere, and Lumiere still doesn't have a point in his ult, so he doesn't really want to be stuck here any longer. Will back himself away, but that's not exactly a group message there. There's still a couple of heroes who were left in the fight, Sacred foremost among them, as he gets blown up by that Pulse Nova, and
Alone.
yeah, what is he still doing here?
Ooh.
Living up to his name. He is completely by himself. Sexy Fat wants the Burrow. Look at him go. He is just desperate for that stun, but nice Torrent comes out. RDO, though, he's going to be able to get in there with the telekinesis. They lock Alone down, and the Kunkka will not be surviving this one. I'm sorry. I truly do not mean to laugh, but that's Duster's luck in this game, right? His team finds somebody sort of lagging behind. They put together a nice play to kill him off, and what's your reward for it? You get clipped by the cone from the Tidebringer, and you still end up dying. But it's a kill that they needed. Any kill is a kill that they desperately need right now for Fúria Jovem, so you'll take that trade-off. Duster does have to give his life, but that's going to get them a little bit closer to their opponent. Still down by 2,000 at the 10-minute mark, but progress is being made. They're starting to show maybe a little bit more in the way of sort of resistance, and if they can buy some time in the aftermath of these fights, they do really still need to get the Drow Ranger going.
And now you do have a Yule Scepter completed up on the Leshrac. We'll see if they wanted to maybe smoke with it, go for a reveal play. But really the biggest issue right now on Fúria Jovem is the bottom lane in levels. The Drow and the Abaddon are still so much further behind anyone else on the map. And Infamous, they definitely got ahead of themselves top. After the meta, trying to kill Sexy Fat underneath that tier 1 tower, they were sort of waiting for a play to happen. I feel like they gave that Leshrac just the perfect opportunity to very simply just walk back in with full mana. He didn't even TP to the top tower. He TP'd mid, farmed a full wave, and then they were still trying to kill Sexy Fat. It just felt like they definitely overstayed their welcome, and that's why you see he's the highest net worth on his team. Really everything, even though he died underneath the tower to start that entire engagement off, I think Infamous, again, they stayed around a little bit too long, got punished. He got 3 kills and a tier 1 tower, so he's sitting on top of the world right now, and this is a very key hero for Fúria, I think. If, again, he can maintain a lead, or even just net worth comparable to the Terrorblade, that's where this matchup, it doesn't feel terrible just yet. It's really going to be once Lumiere completes that Scotty, that's where the Leshrac really stops playing Dota. You stop finding opportunities, you kind of run out of damage that you can feed into him. And that's why I think they need to smoke. I think Duster doesn't have one? Okay. They're doing something here in the triangle, but I think right now Fúria, they're so scared, they're staying so grouped because they are just terrified of the infamous 5-man, but 5 heroes watching Leo style farm the triangle is not where you want to be. Infamous are just going to simply outfarm you at that rate.
Yeah, not exactly the pinnacle of efficiency here for Fúria Jovem, but, well, they've got to try and do something. Sexy Fat working his way towards that Blink Dagger, not quite there yet, but There is progress being made, but while they sort of drag their feet, we see the other side going for the aggressive play themselves. They smoke up. Sacred's going to sort of lead the charge here, blink up on that LC. Already got plus 10 dual damage from the previous fight, looking for another opportunity. They run directly into Sexy Fat. They're going to hit him up with duel, into the arrow, into the Starstorm, into the Ghost Ship even flying through. Sexy Fat will fall. I don't believe Sacred actually got the win, though. Yeah, timed out just that little bit earlier. So no bonus damage for Sacred, but that's still the kill that they wanted. They pick off Sexy Fat, and now, if they want to, they can try and go for a push onto this tier 1 tower, and that puts Fúria Jovem into a bit of an awkward spot. Do you actually commit resources to defend it? Right now, it looks like they want to. They're starting to rotate their way over, but there's going to be the X thrown down onto Seuss. Leshrac pulled back into the Torrent, but Lumiere not overly interested in the fight. He's just going to hack away from long range with the meta, but a stolen Torrent. Actually going to put them down for a little bit, but Lesh, you're very low on HP here. Got to be so damn careful. Looks like for now he is going to be able to back off, but Lumiere, with that meta still going, is looking for the damage, but now Sexy. He thought about it, channeled out the Epi for a moment, but not going to go all the way in for it. They know that Lumiere is here. They've got the Sentry Ward up, so yeah, Lumiere, that's a bit of an awkward position. He's not going to get off, oof. Not going to be able to get off the ult. RDO locks him down with that Fade Bolt, and now if you're Infamous, it's time to go. They don't really have the option to leave, though, as A going to get himself locked down. Leo finds the kill.
And again, it's sort of like rookie mistakes. You had A, who was sort of sitting in this pocket on the low ground to try and be in range. I feel like they had an interesting position there, but they just kind of, again, threw away what could have been, I think, a lot better for them. I think there were 2 heroes sitting in Sandstorm for maybe like 10 seconds there. I think they could really just take a step back, refocus a little bit, and then get the upper hand on Fúria, but they're just kind of going a little bit too early. It's a little bit, again, strange.
And to a certain extent, they didn't know it at the time, but yeah, the game plan was Lumiere sits right in here on top of a Sentry Ward he didn't know existed, and the only plan that they had was to keep him there, but throw out the Moonlight Shadow. But you're standing under a Sentry Ward, it doesn't really pan out for him. And it just feels like that's just unnecessary. At that point, the tower isn't necessarily even worth taking that kind of risk over, and Infamous sort of learned that the hard way, but still up by about 2,000 net worth, but they're going to get jumped in on. Sexy Fat wants the fight, moving in onto Alone, but there's going to be Sacred jumping in to get the duel down. Can they kill the Sand King off in time this time around? No, they can't. They actually don't even kill him at all. Sexy Fat will live. Alone is the one to fall as RDO. Again, just that sniper from the back line. That's twice now he's been able to get in there with that Fade Bolt just to get that last little bit of damage in. And I mean, it looked interesting. Sexy Fat goes in first. You think initially maybe he's bit off more than he can chew. Multiple Infamous heroes there to sort of meet him, but it's the perfect bait. They draw everyone in. They throw everything they've got onto that Sand King to try and get the kill, and that leaves them with very little in the tank for the counterplay from the rest of Fúria.
And really, it feels like compounding mistakes. The same play that they could have made 2 minutes ago where...
Oh, no.
Oh, he's just so greedy.
Sacred. Oh, I mean... That one doesn't feel quite as egregious, right? He's under his own tier 2 tower, but you don't have any vision. You just sort of lost a fight in and around that middle lane. You got to assume there's still people nearby. As speaking of people nearby, Leo in onto Michael, hits him up with the knockback and the silence there from the Gust, and well, Michael with no leap charges can't exactly get himself away from that. Leo finds the kill, and now all of a sudden, you look at this Drow Ranger, Leo is starting to kind of get himself going a little bit more, still quite a ways down that net worth chart, but the gap is beginning to close, and elsewhere on the map, Alone is actually getting jumped in on. Sexy Fat wants in. Burrow only hitting onto A, not onto the Kunkka. That's a bit unfortunate for them, but it's still another pickoff.
They've just completely started to collapse. Their mistakes, they just need to stop. They need to regroup. They need to get sort of back to this organized Dota play, because right now they are just sort of waterfalling in one after another. After that first original Sacred Death, or actually it was just Alone whenever he died mid, and again, it's just the repercussions of that one mistake mid when they tried to push that tier 1 tower, where they could have killed Sexy Fat whenever Duster was having a bad game, whenever he didn't have the levels. He was a level 6 Abaddon with 1 point Mist Coil and 3 in Aphotic. Now he's pretty much maxed out on his spells, and you're starting to feel the power of this Abaddon, where Infamous, they kind of missed their timing just a little bit, and now they're going to struggle to find a little bit more of that damage to top off these kills. Something that you would think that they're fine, but they don't have that sort of lead anymore. They don't have the level advantage really after the kills they just gave away. They don't have a insurmountable amount of duel wins. And oh no. Hey again.
Yeah, Oracle's going to get taken down. RDO Actually stole himself a little bit of
Good
extra nuke
save.
damage with this Purifying Flame. So yeah, A. Okay, able to False Promise himself. Sacred turns around for the duel. Can they actually win this duel? They are actually not going to get it. They don't get the win. They do get the kill. Lumiere, though, had to defensively sunder his teammate. That is not a great sign. And now they're on the run. A still getting run down. Do they have the actual detection for him, though? No, they do not. But Duster is going to spot him a second time. What can they really do here? Artio is sort of in position. He's going to be able to get off the telekinesis. Meanwhile, back to the south. Looks like Infamous are trying to sort of regroup and push in. They still haven't really lost much. And without the Sand King, feels like Fúria Jovem don't have quite as much in the way of initiation, but Alone, what is he doing there? That is very much out of position for him, as he will get taken down, and now all of a sudden the situation has changed. You go from Infamous grouping up looking for a fight to Alone getting picked off, and all the momentum just sort of slips away.
And again, I think Lumiere is playing just a little bit too reactively. He's showing up to a few too many fights, and there it just felt very awkward. I think they felt like they could take that fight because they do have the vision advantage. They see absolutely everything. But then Alone walks to the low ground to Furia's vision advantage. He just walks in between the lines, and of course you're going to get punished. And that's the one unfortunate thing of this matchup of Drow versus Kunkka, where Kunkka just gets immediately slowed up. If you don't have BKB, if you don't have a Force Staff, if you don't have those defensive items, you are just kind of trapped in the Drow's trap. And if there's nobody to sort of peel her off of you, you are just going to sit there and eat 30 arrows, and it's a very, very sad death. And really, if Infamous aren't getting these clean initiations, again, it was a botched duel, and even though I think you were able to win the duel and not lose Lumiere or Sacred, it still felt like after you get that Sunder off, your TB can no longer stand up and force the Leshrac to play around the edge of the fight. And that's the entire reason that this matchup feels as good as it should. But if you have to Sunder to save your allies, if you have to give up the high ground to chase them, I think Infamous are just getting baited really, really hard when they should really be the team doing the baiting. They're the team with Oracle, ulti, Sunder, and press the attack. They should really feel like the team that's in the hot, well, really to the driver's seat. I don't know. It feels really strange with how much they're letting Furia get away with.
All right, the roles are reversed here for seemingly no reason, but at this point, I want to take a look back at Leo once again. Mentioned earlier on, he was sort of starting to build his way up. He's moved now from, I think it was 5th or 6th in the net worth, now to 3rd. So still about 2,500 behind that TB, but Leo is hitting harder and harder as this game goes on, and I don't know, if you're Infamous in the late stage, sure, the TB is probably still going to give you an advantage, but until then, oh boy, you have to try and make moves like this one. The problem is, a little bit faster there with that Yule Scepter. Sacred is not going to be able to get off the duel. Meanwhile, Sexy Fat actually came in with that Epicenter, but False Promise, nicely placed by A. That's going to be able to keep the LC alive, at least for now. It does cost A his own life, but if they can get Sacred out of here, I think that one's going to be worth it. They were hoping for the kill, but at least they're able to get away now. With Sacred still intact, but no duel, False Promise has to be used, and immediately off the back of that pickoff, you see Fúria Jovem smoking his 5.
And I do think at the end of the day, if Infamous do just chill out for a little bit, finish off their items, they get the BKB on Kunkka, they get the Scotty on Terrorblade, they're still in a really good spot. They just could have been in this good spot from ahead. I think they definitely gave their opponents sort of an opportunity here, and yeah, they're smoked up. Furia still are doing the playstyle where they feel like they need to bring every single hero to every single engagement. And we're getting to a point, though, where Lesh, he's almost got a Bloodstone. Then you're going to have that much more HP to work with. You're going to have that much more mana to sort of beat into these heroes. And if these fights do drag long enough where meta is going to expire, where the duration isn't going to outlast as long as the team fights have been in this early game, because nobody's dying initially. It's always, what do we have to expend to save this person? Is this too much? Do we need to disengage?
Ooh. Sacred?
Sacred.
That's a bold move. Where's his backup? No one's here in time for this kill. What in the world was that? That just felt so ambitious for them to go in on. They are still trying, though, but still not enough damage. What? Something had to have gone wrong there. Sacred was maybe not in direct communication, or on the same page, rather, with his teammates, and now Infamous are in some trouble. Alone is actually getting slowed up. He will pop the BKB, though, so that's going to get him out of this initial fight, but they're still hoping they can turn around. Good route out from A, connecting onto 2, but now all of a sudden, yeah, that Oracle has nowhere to go. Slowed up, taken down, good stun in from Sexy Fat to keep that one going, and they find the pickoff, but I still... I still can't wrap my head around what Sacred's plan was with that initiation.
And maybe if you're having a better game, maybe if you're in a different state, it would make sense. It would make sense, again, 10 minutes ago, but your level 13 Legion Commander dueling a level 17 Leshrac, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And now, Roshan's under siege. I don't think they can really do anything about it. They're going to walk over, they're going to throw a torrent maybe in there, but
no
again,
go
they're
ship
just
for
bodying.
10. I mean, really, how much can they do? Sacred's gonna... Oh, God, Sacred's really gonna give it a go, but there's that Yules again!
Yules.
The reactions from Suits, I mean...
Zeus on 30 ping.
Damn.
Zeus on 30 ping. That's all I'm gonna say.
Took off the weights, got himself back up to a decent ping, and yeah, that's what happens. He's just instant on that Yule Scepter. Gotta give Sacred a little bit of credit. That last play with the duel was a little bit questionable. That one obviously doesn't work out for him, but he had an opportunity. If it weren't for that incredible Yule's timing, maybe he does steal that Aegis. And if you can take that away, that's well worth the sacrifice, but this time it doesn't work out. And now if you're Fúria Jovem, every last bit of momentum is on your side. You have found pickoffs. You've taken the last couple of fights. You have the Aegis sort of in your hands, and that gap that we were talking about between TB and the other cores, I mean, it's basically gone. Less than a 1k difference between himself and the Leshrac. So at a certain point, they're starting to get less and less afraid of that TB, even with the Scotty now picked up.
And again, I feel like in part it is sort of Lumiere's responsibility because, again, he's been responding to everything. He hasn't been able to push these lanes nearly as hard as if he was maybe centralized around the top area of the map where you're always able to send an illusion to that side lane to where the enemy team doesn't want to play. Instead, he's always been behind his teammates getting initiated on by the Sand King, and he's going to get splittered.
Okay, that's a problem. And Leshrac does have the Aegis, and oh my god. RDO hits him up with a stolen ghost ship. That's Sacred down, A dead as well, and never mind. The Leshrac doesn't have to be careful in the slightest. He can just charge forward, knowing his teammates had his back. Big stolen spell there out from the Rubik. He now has his hands on the Purifying Flames as well. So throws the ghost ship, trades it out, a little bit of nuke damage, a little bit of heal now at his disposal, but at this stage, I'm not sure there's going to be another fight. Infamous really just on the back foot here. They can't hold their ground.
And again, it's just Lumiere. He's sitting behind his teammates that are dying. He finally makes a split now, but it just feels like right now, after Infamous had such a fantastic early game, they're playing behind the 8 ball. They're playing 1 to 2 steps behind Furia at all of their movements, and now the towers are going to start to fall. The structural damage is going to start to happen. This Leshrac is still in the game, and I think this is Sooth's best Leshrac game out of the 3. He's just really unstoppable at this point. He's got so much net worth. He's gotten away with the greedy items, and as of right now, if he can have more net worth, even keep this lead over the Terrorblade, that's where this matchup actually becomes untenable. It's where you get the BKB, you can actually sit on the Leshrac and not worry about anything because you have enough items, you have enough gold to close the gap in the matchup, and here we go, it's just more net worth going the way of Furia. Oh, sexy.
Okay, X pulls him back into the arrow. Big opportunity here. They're going to hit him up with a Veil as well, but Duster's coming in. He's going to pop down the shield. Is that going to be enough, though? No. Sacred wins the duel, but that damage is starting to become a bit of an issue. They're getting pushed back into the river. Lumiere, though, does pop the meta, so he's going to try and make this one happen, as that Leshrac is dangerously low, but he does still have the Aegis to work with, so even if you bring him down, you're going to have to deal with him a second time, and you're going to have to do so without Sacred, as they do end up losing that LCA is now going to be dying in the pit as well. There we go. As A does get taken down, and at this point, Infamous are just falling back. Lumiere and Alone trying to get the hell out of Dodge right now. And I do believe they're going to be able to make it out of here. The Leshrac can't catch up in time to get the Yules off. So, honestly, that goes relatively well. You burn the Aegis, you get a dual win, you take down Sexy Fat and Duster. Only really costs you 1 or 2 heroes, but this is where the actual consequences of that fight will come out. If you don't take a clean win, Fúria Jovem are back to pushing the lane. They're going to take an objective, and overall, sure, the kills may have gone a little bit in your favor, but the map control will not.
And that's where, again, you are getting a few items here and there. Oh, Sexy Fat. Oh, they got it.
Oh, man. Good play in from the Sand King. Blink Burrow catching out Michael, just trying for a little bit of a split push play, but I don't know. This feels so strange that Infamous are the ones, as you sort of mentioned before, they're the ones playing the reactionary style, but you look at their lineup and that doesn't always make sense. Right? They've got the Kunkka, they've got the Mirana, they've got the LC. You'd think in a lot of situations they could be the ones sort of initiating, and that's just not how any of these scenarios are playing out. And over on the other side, I mean, look at this. Leo and Seuss, they're just going to keep on going, pushing out every single opportunity they can get. They've taken now all of the outer towers, so momentum has entirely shifted. Take a look at the net worth chart here over the past 10 to 15 minutes. Infamous have really lost whatever sense of control that they previously were holding.
And that's where you kind of see the glimpses into that game one of Infamous a little bit more, where, okay, you pick this Legion Commander last pick, it's fantastic versus the Abaddon, you're stunned last. You can't purge it off with the Aphotic Shield. However, you are still all-inning on one hero that's going to be saved by Abaddon. If you're going to play like you did in the first game, you need to go on more than one target. You need to start these team fights a little bit better. You can't just all-in on one guy, because that's where now the Aegis, now all of the items that they've been able to amass over this lead they've gained, the difference makers are going to start to cease. It just feels like Furia have an infinite amount of opportunities to really punish you because of their heroes. Their heroes are so quick, they're so fast. It's simply telekinesis, burrow strike. It's just in and out. They could care less about their initiation, where you need to get so many heroes. You need to make sure that Duster is not in a position to save anyone. It was very fortunate the way that kill on a Sexy Fat started to offer them. It was just a perfect X torrent into 5-second arrow, and then you got a duel right before Duster was able to connect with him. That doesn't happen very often. That's only happened once in the entire scheme of this game. And right now, I think the biggest issue is that Alone is falling behind.
Oh, Sexy Fat channeled out the epicenter. He's going to go in looking for the damage. It's not actually on point, and now Sacred responding with the duel. Sexy Fat out right away. Good start for Infamous, but they're going to need more. They have Duster sort of caught out here. He is no longer working with that ult, so if they can lock him down, should be a relatively simple kill for them, as Duster will fall. Lumiere picks up both of those, and that is exactly what they needed. Sexy Fat in that instance, I think, was maybe anticipating that reinforcements were going to be coming. Instead, it really was kind of just him and the ABBA in that fight.
And really, you couldn't have timed it better. You're going to get this mid-tier 1 tower. You won't be able to put any structural pressure on, I think, the rest of it. They might try a little bit with the rest of this meta duration, but there's always a glyph available. But you timed it with the Daedalus being picked up by Lumiere, and that's where all of the damage starts coming in. There isn't much that you can do. Sexy Fat is not tanky enough to survive any of that. And if Infamous, again, if they can stall it out, if they can just wait a little bit, be a little bit more calm and measured, I think they have the default win lineup. I think they need to force Furia to do something exceptional. They need to get those good initiations, and Sexy Fat, sort of in a vacuum, had the good initiation. He immediately found the Oracle, but that's why Infamous's lineup is so robust, because immediately he gets pressed the attack, he's spell immune, he has the shard, and then you just immediately lose your Sand King at the beginning of your fight. Everybody else has to back. And that's why they're, I think, just immediately going again. They know that there's no meta. Sacred.
They're in onto the LC. Can they blow her up? No, they can't, because the False Promise comes through. The Ghost Ship connecting onto 2 as well, and that's just going to be a quick and clean disengage. False Promise on cooldown for a bit, but I think that's going to be sort of worthwhile for them to keep everybody up and running. And missed opportunity for Fúria Jovem. They smoked into that one, weren't able to make it happen, and unfortunately for them, Roche on that sort of extended respawn timer as well, still 90 seconds before it's back up. So if they had gotten the sort of instant fast respawn, that would have been a pretty spectacular play. You don't get the kill, but you've cleared out the Roche pit. Now, they still have control of the north side jungle, but there's not really a whole lot they can immediately do with it.
And we are getting some big items now on Infamous. We got the BKB queued up for the Terrorblade, only about 600 short of that, as well as Alone having the Aghanim Scepter. And once this Aghanim Scepter is actually in the play, it is going to be very obnoxious for you to deal with. It's something that you can't really account for on the Abaddon, and once you commit that borrowed time to avoid one torrent, if you walk into another, that is disastrous if the team fight goes down that way. As well as Leo not going for the BKB. There are a lot of holes right now in Furia's itemization.
And for the Leshrac as well, Sooths opted for the Lincolns over any sort of BKB play on his own side, so this feels honestly a little bit risky for them. It could pay off in terms of still giving them maybe a little bit more in the way of offensive firepower, but if they're the ones getting jumped in on, the lack of direct magic immunity may be a problem. At least the Lincolns can maybe block off something like the duel so that the Leshrac is a bit less susceptible to that, but You could pop it with something like the X. You could pop it with really a couple of the Oracle spells. So as long as Infamous are sort of planning in advance who's going to do what to try and burn through some of that defensive itemization, they should still have a pretty good go of it, and they are going to smoke up, looking for the long wraparound all the way into the west side jungle. Now coming up from behind, Moonlight Shadow is going to get popped as well, just to make sure that they're sort of staying on top of it. But that Moonlight Shadow is a problem, because they're walking right past a sentry ward. There's no one here to confirm that. Oh, there was. RDO just barely glimpses them in time, and he is going to sort of sound the alarm. But Sexy Fat, he got caught out by the X. He's going to get pulled back in. The Ghost Ship connecting onto two. They actually clipped the Lesh on that as well. But now Sexy Fat immediately buying back, trying to rejoin the fight. They're hoping to keep this one going. Going down on the other side. He's going to commit a buyback as well. But Lumiere is in there looking for all the damage that he can possibly get. Alone, though, is actually the one on the front line, taking the majority of that damage as Sexy Fat rejoins the fight. Pops the ult, but Lumiere goes for the BKB into the Sunder, so he is still fighting, and now this is getting a little bit too broken up for Fúria Jovem. But they do isolate Alone. They're able to finish him off, but Leo is in a bit of a bad way himself. The only thing is, Lumiere can't hit him any longer, doesn't have the vision now from the low ground, and that's going to give Fúria Jovem the opportunity to regroup. They get back in onto the TB, hitting him up with that stun from Sexy Fat. He had already used the Sunder previously, and this is where it's going to fall apart. Sacred going to get hit up by that telekinesis. They pull him back into the fight. They catch out A for his second life as well. And Infamous, the start of the fight looked pretty good. They were willing to ride Lumiere and Alone through the initial burst, but that buyback from Sexy Fat really did seem to sort of do the trick for them. They had thought that the Sand King was removed as a threat, so they group up in exactly the kind of position that the Sand King wants to punish.
And again, the team fight just sort of devolved. They placed this fantastic ward up here. They didn't have any vision on the same level. Furia were really sort of shooting blind, but Leo just sat on the high ground hitting a Terrorblade. I've never seen a situation where a Drow Ranger can so easily sit on the high ground, hit the Terrorblade, and the Terrorblade doesn't do anything about the situation. He just simply sits there and hits right back. And really, Alone had to suicide to stay on the Drow. If he didn't do that, then Leo would have just immediately started chunking away at Lumiere, and it just felt like that situation was so easily avoidable. If they just stayed together a little bit more on the Infamous side, neither of their saves got off, the Lincoln Sphere popped, the duel, none of the lockdown actually ended up hitting, and again, it's the perfect buyback from Sexy Fat. He doesn't even go down a second time. They even kited away from their own sentries, so that way there wasn't any situation where very simply Lumiere could just hit. I felt like he got kited so hard for really his own fault. He's the one that walked down onto the high ground. They decided to take the fight there, and that was without Roche even being a factor. Nobody knew it was up until Duster walked into the pit, and it just feels like such a terrible way to throw, again, more of a lead that I really think that Infamous should have. And now you got another Aegis on the Leshrac, Shard probably also on the Leshrac as well, and you've got 25. So now this tower, it's either Glyph or you TP back right now, because you're going to start losing your racks here.
And Suit's going to work. That's going to force out the Glyph, as you said, and now Infamous, this is the situation. I mean, you know what you're up against, but there isn't always a plan to sort of counter this out. What exactly do you do? Who makes the initiation? Does Sacred jump in? And if he does, who do you go for? If you try to hit up the Leshrac, he's got a Lincoln's and the Aegis. Anyone else is really not going to have as big of an impact in terms of taking them out of the fight. Maybe you somehow catch out someone like Sexy Fat or Leo, but Sexy Fat is well on the backside of this fight, and Leo honestly might just do enough damage where you lose the duel anyway. So it's just really a catch-22. Anyone that you jump in on, at least in terms of core heroes, it's going to be too difficult for them, and it may not even just pan out. You end up potentially accidentally initiating for the other side. So your LC now has to kind of sit on her hands. Sacred doesn't have a whole lot of agency right now.
And I understand it is difficult. Sacred's had probably the hardest game on his team. He's really playing versus it all, and okay, they're watching the Aegis carrier walk up the wave. The smoke could give them a pretty good position, but again, they throw the arrow. They see absolutely everyone, but it just doesn't matter because they're comfortable with this. They're okay with it. The torrent doesn't even land. It just feels really strange because now Furia are just going to simply walk to the high ground and they're going to do more damage. There's no reason for Furia to take the fight on the shrine. They could just run at the building.
Duster just got hit up by the arrow. That illusion actually dropping him pretty low. And now, okay, Alone hits him up with the X into the torrent. Duster has to pop the ult, but the telekinesis is there into the arrow. It does heal him up a little bit, though. So Not really sure if they're going to be able to continue pursuing this one, but Duster's just sort of a one-man show at the moment. He is distracting everything and everyone, but now Leo wants in. Blinking forward, going to throw out that multi-shot. Here comes Sexy Fat as well, looking for the stun, but the False Promise actually already went down. The Oracle was able to save himself, but that means that ult is no longer available for the actual fight, but the Torrent Storm is now going to come in. Alone wants this engagement. They're going to get the X down. Oh my god, they are blowing up that Drow Ranger. Leo has very little to work with, but the stolen False Promise from RDO keeps him alive. Lumiere says, I'm out of here. TPing himself home. That is huge from the Rubik. Steals that False Promise. He has the Conjure Image now, but he did steal it. But that keeps Leo alive. That keeps really everyone alive.
There isn't a worst case scenario, and yeah, they're pinging because they know half duration meta, it's going to be up soon. They have the Terror Wave, so he's got slightly more time if he needs it, but I think this is just the end of the game. I think Furia might have broken the base. I feel so bad for A on that Oracle. You try to save yourself, you immediately get stunned by Sexy Fat, and then you lose your ultimate, and then the one play you had where you had so many cores stacked up on the Drow Ranger just ends up falling short. Now Michael too.
Yeah.
It just feels like everything falling apart now.
Buyback, though, from Michael. They're going to give it a go. They don't have Alone, though, and they don't have Meta. This is going to be insanely difficult for them, but they have to try something. Sexy Fat, though, look at him go. Just sort of faking it out over and over again, basically daring Infamous to try and go in, but they have to. The Ancient's been exposed. It's down to about 2/3 of its HP, so they've got to go.
Oh, no.
That's not... No. No. Well, they tried. Didn't really work out for them. Everyone's going to get wiped out, except for Michael, who pops the GG and runs away. So... It felt so strange for Infamous. We looked at their lineup, there was so much to sort of like about what they had put together, but they really just don't hit the mark in way too many scenarios. Too many missed opportunities, too many missed timings, and minor mistakes that really just hand Fúria Jovem all the momentum in the world.
Yeah, and I really think that they had something good. I think that they had something that they wanted to play. I just think, again, you got forced into this very reactionary style where I think Sacred was playing, he was playing like he was 11-0. He was playing like he was so far ahead when in actuality, after that mid-tier 1 where they tried and they failed the siege, it felt like as soon as they killed the Terrorblade, of course, one TB kill can't swing a game, but Terrorblade as your ultra carry, it sort of feels like you can swing a game with the TB because you give all of that XP over to the lane that should have failed. There was a level 8 Gerald, there was a level 6 Abaddon, 15 minutes into the game, and it felt like they were non-factors. It felt like any initiation Sacred could get was going to work because of how sort of poor and not good Duster was in that situation. He had no levels, he had nothing, but instead they give away one kill, they swing the XP in the other direction, they let a few too many towers go here and there, and again, if you can maintain that net worth lead over the TB, I think Lumiere showed up to so many fights that he otherwise could have ignored. He could have been pushing out the waves, he could have had another 2 items, but instead, he commits to the fight, he really believes in his teammates. And if you look at Infamous's lineup with the Oracle Mirana support duo, everything was on Sacred. If Sacred wasn't having a good game, if he wasn't living up to the play, then they had to go for other options where I think they believed so hard in their teammate that they just got baited over and over again into fights that they could have made different decisions. They could have made better decisions and it would have ended up being closer. We saw how fast that Drow died before she got saved by Rodeo's fantastic False Promise, but it still feels just a little bit discombobulated, a little bit mixed up. I feel like we saw the same Infamous in Game 1 here in Game 3.
Yeah, and especially in the draft, we saw that TB picked up, and I was mentioning, that plays so well into Lumiere's playstyle. I mentioned he values the efficiency above everything else. He doesn't really get involved too often in those fights. He comes out of the jungle, 20 to 30 minutes in, and he's sort of ready to go, but that's not what we saw here. He, like you said, kind of got baited by his teammates. They believed that Sacred and Alone were going to be able to sort of make those initiating plays, and technically speaking, they did initiate, but not really into favorable situations. And credit where credit's due to Fúria Jovem. They recognize their opponents are still committing to fights even when they don't necessarily have the advantage, and they turn pretty much all of those fights around. Turn that aggression from Infamous against them and close out a 2-1 win. So very nicely done by Fúria Jovem. Relatively new squad, but we're seeing a lot from them in terms of their ability to go toe-to-toe with some of their regional rivals. It's been pretty impressive here so far.
Back to Brazil. They're done with EU. So many what would have been CIS players back to Brazil. I mean, it's their time to shine.
Right. So Fúria Jovem will be advancing to the main event. They're going to be taking part in that group stage just a couple of days from now. Infamous, meanwhile, do still have a second chance. They drop down to the lower bracket final, and they'll play up against the winner of our next series, Team Unknown versus Simply 2-Based. But before we hop on over to that series, we've got ourselves a good old-fashioned giveaway courtesy of Mate. Let me get that up on the screen for you, folks.